Hello everyone and welcome back. Today, we're breaking down a major development that's unfolding in the Middle East, involving former U.S. President Donald Trump, Hamas, Israel, and the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. It's a story that weaves diplomacy, power, and hope into one of the most delicate ceasefires the region has seen in years. At the center of it all is a bold claim from a senior Hamas official that the current ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel wouldn't have been possible without Donald Trump's involvement. According to this official, Hamas directly requested Trump's reassurance that Israel would not attack them again once hostages are released. And Trump, through intermediaries, reportedly provided exactly that assurance. The implication: Hamas sought Trump's political backing to hold Israel accountable post-hostage release, and the former president gave them his word. This has sparked intense debate, not just about the legitimacy of a former U.S. president negotiating with a designated terrorist organization, but about whether Trump's involvement is helping to stabilize the situation or complicating it further. The move appears to be a strategic one for Trump, too. Sources close to his circle suggest he's aiming for a Nobel Peace Prize next year, and securing a breakthrough in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict would be a historic achievement for any leader, former or current. Meanwhile, the ceasefire agreement itself remains incredibly fragile. While both Hamas and the Israeli government have signed on to the 20-point plan, trust between the parties is minimal. According to Karen von Hippel, former senior advisor at the U.S. State Department and former official with both the UN and EU, it's difficult to take either side's promises at face value. In her words, it really will rely on sustained U.S. pressure to keep both sides in check. She points out that countries like Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt will be instrumental in maintaining that balance, applying pressure on Hamas while the U.S. focuses its leverage on Israel. Von Hippel also emphasized the importance of keeping Trump's attention firmly fixed on the region, noting that he can be easily distracted, especially in a heated election season. However, his son-in-law Jared Kushner and advisor Steve Witkoff are expected to remain actively involved, which could help maintain continuity in the peace effort. An interesting and increasingly urgent question is, who will govern Gaza if Hamas does indeed step aside as it claims? Hamas has publicly stated its willingness to relinquish its governing role in Gaza, a statement met with cautious optimism but also skepticism. Von Hippel warns that simply replacing Hamas with an international administrator, for example, former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, would not be a smart move. Blair's name has reportedly been floated for a potential leadership or oversight role, but Hamas has flatly rejected the idea. Von Hippel draws from her experience in Kosovo, where she was part of a temporary UN-led government, and says those types of transitional administrations are generally ineffective and often deeply resented by local populations. Her argument is that Palestinians must lead their own governance efforts, with international actors supporting quietly from the background, perhaps overseeing financial flows or large infrastructure decisions, but not acting as de facto rulers. So, what about peace? Is this a turning point, or just another temporary lull? Von Hippel describes herself as cautiously optimistic, but gives the ceasefire only a 35% chance of lasting. That's not a prediction rooted in pessimism. It's one based on experience. The January ceasefire was also hailed as a breakthrough, only to collapse shortly after. Still, the current public mood among both Israelis and Palestinians appears to be one of guarded hope. In Gaza, the fragile calm has prompted tens of thousands of displaced people to begin returning north on foot, walking long distances due to the exorbitant cost of taxis, some reportedly charging up to £900. It's part of a slow shift tied to Israel's partial withdrawal of troops under the ceasefire agreement. And yet, even as civilians begin to move, a major crisis continues to unfold. Aid isn't getting in. The United Nations reports that over 6,000 aid trucks are waiting just outside Gaza's border, ready to deliver critical supplies. But the border crossings remain largely closed, with only one currently open. Officials believe up to 6 or 7 crossings could be operational soon, possibly by Tuesday. But delays continue to block the flow of life-saving food, water, medicine, and fuel. Among the most urgent of these needs, medical care. And this brings us to another shocking piece of the puzzle. Doctors and surgeons, including experienced professionals from the UK, are being denied entry into Gaza. One such expert is Dr. Victoria Rose, a plastic surgeon from St. Thomas Hospital in London, who has previously completed 3 medical missions in Gaza, and was scheduled to return to Nasser Hospital this weekend. But her entry was blocked by Israeli authorities, despite being part of a UN-coordinated emergency medical convoy. Dr. Rose explained that the system is coordinated by the UN's emergency medical team based in Cairo. Convoys are typically scheduled twice a week with about 25 available seats, which are booked by NGOs months in advance and confirmed 2 weeks before departure. Final clearance, however, is provided by COGAT, the Israeli military body responsible for coordinating civilian access to Gaza. And COGAT has reportedly been denying entry to most surgeons in recent months, especially since the March ceasefire. Dr. Rose clarified that this denial isn't due to her personal activism or social media presence, even though she has posted footage of her work online. In fact, many of her colleagues who are not publicly outspoken have also been refused access. She said, "When you look at the lists of people granted entry, it's clear that if your job title includes surgeon, anesthetist, or anything medical, you're more likely to be denied. Logistics staff, health coordinators, or non-clinical personnel are the ones getting in." Despite these obstacles, the need for surgical care in Gaza is critical. Dr. Rose shared details of her previous missions at Nasser Hospital, where she would begin operating at 9 a.m. and continue until 11 p.m. each day, often treating up to 12 patients daily. She explained that 50% of the people she operated on during her last mission were under the age of 15. The hospital itself, while damaged, remains partially functional. It still runs 9 operating theaters, but is critically short on equipment. Medical teams try to bring their own tools but face strict luggage limitations, just one 23-kilogram bag per person, which must also include food due to the current blockade. Despite these limitations, the teams work nonstop. When asked whether she believed the new ceasefire would allow doctors back in, Dr. Rose expressed disappointment. She said the ceasefire announcement promised more humanitarian aid, and yet the very people needed to deliver that aid are being blocked. She remains hopeful that the Rafah border, controlled by Egypt, will reopen soon. If that happens, access may be granted through Egyptian rather than Israeli control, potentially easing the blockade on medical professionals. So, where does this all leave us? Donald Trump is, once again, deeply involved in Middle East diplomacy, this time from outside the Oval Office. His promises to Hamas and ongoing pressure on Israel are helping hold a temporary ceasefire together, but how long that will last remains uncertain. Hamas says it's ready to step away from power, but no clear, accepted governance plan has emerged. International players like Tony Blair may be involved in some capacity, but it's clear that any perceived foreign rule will be met with backlash, not just from Hamas, but from everyday Palestinians. On the ground, thousands of civilians are trying to return home, aid is stuck at the border, and doctors are being turned away while hospitals overflow. In this context, the hope for peace is real, but so is the risk of failure. So, what's your take? Drop a comment below. Do you think Trump's involvement is helping or hurting the peace process? Should the international community be more directly involved in Gaza's reconstruction? And why are doctors being blocked from doing the work that's so urgently needed? Let's continue the conversation, and if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with others who want clear, balanced updates on what's happening in the world. Until next time, stay informed, stay compassionate, and stay tuned.